Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on SAP UI5 and Fiori training. In the last session, we talked about table control and creating fragments using JavaScript code. In today's session, we will discuss about another most important topic in UI5 called component.js. Before we start, I would like to quickly show you how to create a variety of drop-down controls as well as calendar control in SAP UI5. So let's get started. Let's have a look at our application. This is our application, what we created by far. In this, now I would like to go ahead and do the binding to create my calendar control in my fragment for city select. You can see here there's a select control just displaying select drop down without any items. So just go ahead and do the binding with items, and of course with slash cities, and then we have each item is of type items aggregation with core item class with the key property and with the text property. That's the aggregation we are binding. And now in the key I will just put curly braces. Here we will put city code and here we will put the city name. Let's go and check in the model what is the property we have for city binding. I just come here and show you. For city we have city name and state. So let's use city, and in fact I can use city both the places for key as well as for the name. Save it. Let's come back and refresh the page, and now we can just go and see it should have the values inside. Oops, not coming still, something went wrong. So that's my fragment, and in this I have cities. What is the name of the entity set? It is cities, which is correct. And I think I missed out the curly braces, of course. Yes, that is the part which I missed out in the binding for items aggregation. And yes, now you can see all the cities are populating over here. That's a drop down control in UI5. Now moving next, how to create another control. And I want to create similar to this a dialog, select dialog control. And I want to also create a multi-select control. So I can say select dialog control, sorry, combo box control. What is a combo box control? It is exactly like a drop down. Let me show you what is the difference. And there is a multi-select, multi-combo box. So what are all these two more controls which we have? So let's use them. And now I just go back and refresh. So binding remains absolutely same. No change in the binding. But now you see guys, the first one is combo box. So it is an input come select. So in the first one you cannot enter any data, but here it is an input field plus drop down also. So you can see drop down and also input field is there. So now if I say S, you see it's also getting me all the values starting with S, Shimla. Yeah, so that's the beauty of it. So you can type in, yeah, and you can also select in. That's called combo box control. And then this one, as usual, it's a multi select. You can choose multiple. This is a multi select control. Clear everyone? So this is all the three controls which we have. Together with that, let me quickly also show you the date picker. And let's save it, and I can refresh to show you the date picker control, just to pick the dates, and you can see it comes over here. Perfect. So that is the date picker control. So let me put an exercise now on this particular part. What is an exercise for date picker and what is an exercise for? So you have to go ahead and do these exercises, guys. So couple of exercises. In this, you have to first of all write, we are designing a BigFiori application and we have a requirement to perform following in a reusable fashion. So guys, basically what we need is we have multiple views. Okay, we have multiple views in our application, and these multiple views have, of course, these multiple controllers, and then there is a reusable utility which I want to develop. I call it as a validator. Okay, I call it as a validator. Okay, this particular utility has to validate all the data inputs in my application. Okay, so what will you input to this validator? Input to this validator will be the control object. Every method of validator will receive a control object, UI5 control object, and it returns you the the result. Okay, it performs something, of course, inside. Together with that, it also returns only true or false, whether validation passed for that control or did not pass for that control. So you're designing a big Fiori application and want to perform following reusable functions. So first function is to check if the data is not empty in an input field. So input will be the object of input field. Suppose an example come here. So here is an input field. If I leave it blank and now I click on validate button, just add a validate button at the bottom. Okay, let me just do that. So on click of validate button, you should validate if this input field is not empty. And the function, where will you write that function? You should write that function in the validator.js. Don't write it in your controller, or don't write it in your view separately as a formatter. Write it in a validator.js. So whenever you check if the data is not empty in an input field. Now together with that, if the data is empty, set the value state property of the control as error. It should come as error. Okay, input field value state property should come as error. Let me quickly show you in console how does it look like. So how should it come? So go to the console. I just get the control object directly using get core by id. This is my input field. So I say sap.ui.getCore.by id dot set value state equals to error. Can you see a red color error mark is coming around the input field? ऐसा validate करते हैं हम लोग. Set value state to error, else set value state to okay. Okay, none, else set value state to none. So you have to set the value state in your reusable method, which is validating input field. I will pass the object of input field. It should validate the data if it is not empty. Okay, and set the value state property to error and return that the validation failed. So you should return false. When the validation fails, return false. From this, every function of validator JS must return only true and false. That's it. Every function of validator must return true or false. So first requirement is to check if the input field is valid or not. Second requirement, check if the date is more than today's date. That is one validation you need to put. Check if date is less than number of days we will input from current date. So signature of this function is check past date. In this you will pass the date object of your date control, and comma number of days, let's say 3 days. So now you have to take the date value out from the date control. You have to take the date value out and check today's days minus 3 days. If this date what you passed is less than, it is greater than equals to today minus 3 days, basically 3 दिन का window में होना चाहिए. It should be within 3 days of window. If it is before that, throw an error, again return the false, again do the same thing. You can then reuse the above function also to mark it as red. That second function you guys have to do. Third function, check. So maybe these three functions are enough for right now. So you have to design and make sure that these three functions are okay. Let me just put another one. Check if the given value is an email or not. This is what you have to do. Given value is an email or not. Interesting. How do you do it? For this you have to use regular expression. Okay, you have to use regular expression in JavaScript. How do you use that? Just go and just search for regular expression in JavaScript. Okay, you will find it. It's called regex command, regex command. Okay, it's there in almost every programming language. You can check patterns. Email should always contain a one at the rate of at least and one dot at least, right? So that is a regex. Okay, check this. Very helpful documentation to find out the pattern. So likewise, you can do a lot of checks actually. Now, next one. Check if value in input field is more than given value. So again, what will be the input? Check more, object of input field, comma, you have to then pass here the minimum threshold. It should be more than that. If it is less than that, again throw an error. These are all the 5 checks you got to implement in validate.js. Okay, so that is what you all have to use. Okay. Don't use the type property. You have to write functions, guys, in validator.js. Very important. You all have to write functions in validate.js. If any of the validation fails, anyway, you have the object with you, throw the value state error and return false. If the validation pass, return true. Okay. Let's see who all does it properly, who all have understood this exercise properly. Very important exercise. This validator.js is actually, I'm asking you to design so that I can integrate it with my project. Just to showcase, guys, yesterday I could not showcase you. Let me start the Node.js server now. So I'm starting my Node.js server, which for the application which I'm building. So now you see it is starting. My Node.js server started, and I can come back and showcase you my application which I am currently creating. So let me just run that application. This is the one. And then in this I'm designing a login page first of all for login user. Right now just a login button. I click on that, it launches my app. I go inside the app, and now I'll show you here. This is my MongoDB in the cloud. Okay, it is the MongoDB into the cloud, guys. Okay, so it's called Mongo Atlas. It's a database. There is no ABAP language here, there is no HANA here. It's a no SQL DB for storing the data. Best fit for, it's an open source and best fit for any small medium scale software. Yeah, so I don't want to spend complicated licensing fee to SAP to buy a NetWeaver. I don't want that complicated architecture. It's easy for me. My requirement is very simple. And in this now I am storing different roles and stuff like that. Together with that, I'm going to store inquiries here. You see, there are inquiries. Students send me inquiries. I'm storing those inquiries here. So now I run my application. I go here. Let's say there's an inquiry coming from PepsiCo, or maybe say Roger at PepsiCo.com. This guy has sent me an inquiry today asking for a course for Launchpad. Inquiry date is today's date. His name is Roger. His country is United States. So I can say America. United States. And then I can enter phone number. Something, let's say subject is demo. I want demo. He send me this inquiry. I click on save button. Watch out this data. I save it, and it should now call my Node.js API. It's calling my Node API. From my Node API, it's going to send a signal to the MongoDB, which is there in the cloud, and it's going to store this data over here. And when I come back here and I refresh, it should then display me the data stored here. But right now something went wrong. I don't know. Yesterday I was testing it. Same thing was working fine. And just quickly check it. So that is what we are doing. It's an end-to-end software which I'm creating with no ABAP stack in the middle. Complete middleware is using loopback framework with Node.js, and we are also using Node data framework, which is for OData purpose, and we're using MongoDB driver to connect to MongoDB into the cloud. So all of that we are using currently over here. So let me just, okay, my code did not update here. Something is wrong. My code did not update here. I'm sorry. I am running this application from my local web ID. I should run it from my Node server. Yeah. So I have to launch my Node server. I say localhost, and then I should run it from my Node server, guys. Yes. So now it will launch the application from my Node server, correct? You can see it's running not on the web ID port. It's running now on the Node server. And I will say Roger at PepsiCo.com. He is inquired for Launchpad course. Today's date is already picked up. You can see name is Roger, country is United States, phone number is +1809, some number, demo, and I click on save. Voila, posted. Yeah, so I posted the data, and now you can come back to MongoDB here. This is the MongoDB, and I can just do a refresh over here in my MongoDB. And voila, you can see, guys, Roger at PepsiCo.com, a record has been created. This is purely a database in the cloud, and it's a native cloud software. I'm soon going to deploy my this Node.js application, which I'm currently building in local system, into something called a Droplet. A Droplet is nothing but a small piece of compute unit which is running into the cloud, and that's the concept of Ocean Cloud, and that's where I'm going to deploy. So complete solution including the Fiori application will be part of the cloud. It's a complete cloud solution. So this is what I am currently doing. So maybe in my advanced Fiori course I will give a little bit introduction, 1 session, 2 hour session, to build a simple Fiori application. So you can see this is the node application which I'm currently creating. So Fiori application is just part of this client folder. Rest all is separate things. So we have a server, we have middleware, we have configurations, we have models, complete end-to-end application which is getting built here with the loopback plus node data framework. Cool. So just to showcase something which you guys can try, and this, the exercise which I gave you, is going to help us integrating things with this project. So let's get started with the most important concept of Fiori, called component.js. It is impossible to assume or to find a Fiori app today which doesn't have component.js. Yeah, there is no Fiori app which doesn't have a component.js. The very first thing, what is component.js? Component.js is the driver for entire app functionality. It is the starting point of your application. Yes, you're right. It is the starting point of your application, guys. Remember, very important, you cannot start a Fiori application without component.js. Okay. The SAP Fiori Launchpad will always look for component.js file in your application root directory. So it is impossible to deploy your Fiori application and make it work with SAP Fiori Launchpad for productive purpose. Never do that. This application what we build, it doesn't have component.js. It will not work with Fiori Launchpad. Now you may be also thinking, Anubhav, entry point was index.html. What will happen to that, right? Index.html will only be used for local testing in Web IDE. You will not use index.html for any other purpose. Clear, everyone? No other purpose to use index.html. Only use it for local testing, guys. Okay. The SAP Fiori Launchpad will always look forward for this. And remember, an app which has component.js inside is called as Fiori like app. Any app which doesn't have component.js, it's not a Fiori like app. Sometimes you might have heard people talking about uska app Fiori like app nahi hai. Your basis guy will say, come and say your app is not Fiori like app. What is a Fiori like app? An app which has component.js inside is called Fiori like app. Okay. Our main idea here now to kill the dependency. So we need to kill the dependency on index.html. There is no dependency should be there on this. So you see, remember, we were instantiating the view objects. We were instantiating the view objects actually, right? Where we were instantiating the view objects in the, where is my Fiori app? Here it is, in the view
App
or somewhere
controller.
else. So we should
App
not do
controller.
that. You see, we were instantiating the app object. That also we should not do it. It should all be done to component.js. So now your new app structure looks like something this. Your application starting point will be component.js. This component.js also reads the entire application configuration from something called manifest.json. Okay, we will talk about this manifest.json in a minute. So component controller, component.js is going to read the information from manifest.json. Manifest.json is also known as application descriptor file. It is also known as what? Application descriptor. This is what it is known as. It is going to describe complete application properties. What is the ID of application? What is the type of application? What are all the models you want? What are all the views you want? What is the navigation path between each view? How, what are all the library dependency? Is there any dependency on CSS file, JavaScript file? Is there any dependency on another component.js? What is the UI5 bare minimum version required to run this app? What library needs to be loaded? What models needs to be required? Everything you declare it in manifest.json. Everything. What are all the devices supported? What are all the themes supported? What are all the different versions you need? Everything will be there as part of manifest.json. Your component.js is going to reuse the manifest.json. They both are mutually exclusive for each other. What does it mean? इसके बिना ये कुछ नहीं है, इसके बिना ये कुछ नहीं है. It's like diya and bati. Can you separate diya and bati? Deepak and bati? You cannot. Similarly, like that, they are both best friends. They both come together, and it's very important that they both exist in your root directory of your application. This is your starting launching point for your app. Anybody want to launch your Fiori app, they will talk to your component.js. Without component.js, there is nothing like a Fiori like app. So SAP Fiori Launchpad only understand component.js, because this is what is the entry point for all the end users to your application, and it only talks to component.js. There is no index.html here in the picture. And in the component.js, from here you will create your app view object. So your app view, starting app view object, app view XML should be launched by this. And this app view XML, you all know we have a split app control inside. Yeah, we have a split app control inside this. So that's all we have. And this then further has all the things what we do. So this becomes your new application structure. Is that clear, everybody? What is your new application structure? We just got now component.js introduced, and now Launchpad is going to talk to this component.js. But how do you do local testing? So right now there is also concept of local Launchpad. It's called sandbox. We're not going to learn in this course. But if you want to do local testing, you again need a HTML file. So I will still have a file, but this file, what it does, it just launch the component.js. So for everybody to test or run your application, component.js is the single point of contact. Clear, everybody? So index.html will still have, but role of index.html is just for testing purpose, testing locally. Only for that purpose index.html is used. This is just going to create a component object and display the component to you. Everything should start with component.js. Now technically, what is the component.js? What is it technically? Okay, what is there inside? So technically it is an object which is inherited from SAP UI core UI component class. This is what technically it is. It is inheriting from a super class which is part of SAP UI5. Okay, SAP UI core.ui component. That's what technically it is. Okay, this is what component.js is. It is inheriting. So your component.js inherits from this class. Clear, everybody? That's a dependency then. Now remember guys, FundaFox. FundaFox. What is the FundaFox? You will only and only, you must have only one component.js in the root directory of your app. Which is the root directory here? Web app is the root directory of your application. Only one component.js you must have. The file name must be C capital component.js. कुछ और मत डालना यहाँ पे. File name has to be component.js. It has to be C capital. It has to be component.js. Okay, that is what you do when you are deploying your application in the SAP system. You would never need index.html then. You would always need component.js. You never deploy this file index.html in your application. Final deployment in SAP system, you never deploy it. We will discuss that deployment a little later. So now, clear, everybody? The file name must be component.js. There is exactly one file, and the name of the file has to be C capital. Similarly, there is exactly one file with name manifest.json, which also coexist with component.js in root directory. That is what is the most important part. What is the syntax to create component.js? What is the syntax to create it? That's created directly in the system. What is the syntax? We'll see that directly in the system. So I will come back and now recreate it like a Fiori like app. I don't want this app is a normal app. I want it a Fiori like app. So let me do that. So just collapse everything, and this is my root directory. I right click and say create new file, and I call the file as component.js. Wow, superb. Currently I'm not creating manifest.json. Currently I'm not. I will create it little later. I will say sap.ui.define. This is what is a scaffolding we all know for any JavaScript file. Then say function. And now let's put the base class as SAP UI core UI component. That's a dependency. Everybody clear till here, everyone? Are you all clear till here? Step by step, line by line, every single line of code. No copy paste of code. Now come here, component dot extend. And now let's put here the file path. File path is actually your namespace, fiori.oft.fiori.component. Yes, of course, it has to be the written. It has to be written. Okay. Just extend it, comma curly braces. And now it has three sections. First section is metadata. Second section is called init function for initialization purpose. Third function is create content. And then one is destroy. Are you all clear, guys? Constructor, destructor, as well as your creator. सृष्टि के रचयिता, संहारक और पालन करता, Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. All three things. Will you remember this concept? Yeah, that is what we have inside this. Three things as part of this component.js. This is the starting of your Fiori app. This is the beginning of your Fiori app. This is everything for a Fiori app. Without component.js, no one can imagine a Fiori app. Impossible to imagine a Fiori app today without component.js. Open challenge. Go to any of your application which is productively used in your company and get me a single application which doesn't have this file. That's why it's the last but not the least. This concept I'm teaching in the last but not the least. This is the topmost priority concept. If there is one thing which people will ask questions in interview, for sure is that component.js and manifest. Question is 100% about this topic. Let's write first init. Here we have to now call the base class constructor. Okay, I did a mistake. Thank you. It's create content. Thank you so much for correcting me. Now, in the init function, you have to call the base class constructor. How do you call the base class constructor? Use the base class dot prototype dot init dot apply this. That is the syntax to call the base class constructor. You're inheriting from the base class, from a standard UI5 class. You're calling, hey base class, can you please instantiate yourself? This is instantiating the base class, calling the base class constructor. Why? I told you what is it this line doing. Why we do that? What is the purpose? The purpose is actually the base class, the standard base class creates lots of free objects for us, right? Everybody want things free in life, right? We all want things free in life. Yes, here it is. It's giving free of cost some free things for you in life. Like, what are all those free things? We will learn about this concept little later. One of such a free thing is router. It creates a router object for us. This router object will be used for navigation between views. That is what we will use, router. It's going to create likewise a lot of free objects. One of the free object which it will create is router for us for free. Clear everybody? Why we are calling the base class constructor. Now inside create content, let's decouple our index HTML. So I'm now going to get this complete code out of here. This piece of code, which is actual application code, I move it out and move it in the create content method. Is that clear everybody? What did we do? We moved out the complete code from index HTML and now it's in the create content method of the component.js. Is that clear everybody? What is happening here? Are you all clear? What is happening here? We creating the view object now in com because this is the starting point of your Fiori app. जो कुछ होगा यहीं से होगा, जो स्टार्ट हो करना है यहीं से करना है. You should not put any productive code in index HTML. Index HTML only used for local testing. Is that message clear to everybody? Your actual productive code, which is starting the app view, is now from the component.js. Are you clear? This was your starting view of the entire application, which is now with the component.js. It is no more with index HTML. Are you clear, guys, what we are doing here? Why we are writing component.js? If it is clear, I will proceed. Any questions? You cannot delete because how do you test locally? You can't run this in the browser, right? You can't run this directly in the browser. How do you test? How do you test your app locally? Tell me, how do you test your app locally? How? Right? So you need to call still index HTML and this now should call the component.js. So for that reason, we need a component container. We will say new SAP UI core component container. Just put the name of the namespace oft.fiori. And that's all that you put in the DOM body of HTML. So it's just launching the component. This is not a productive code. It's just launching the component JS to test purpose. Clear everybody? We're just launching this for testing purpose. That's all index HTML is doing. This can be completely ignored while you deploy to the SAP system, because in SAP system, users will not access your app via index HTML. They will access via component.js, that too from Fiori Launchpad. Okay. Is that clear everybody? What did we do? Now are we ready to test the first part if our component.js works or not?
Anubhav, can you explain again on the create content?
The create content. Okay, create content is the method of component.js which is going to do the same job what index HTML was doing earlier. So here we are creating our app view object and returning it out. Now, what do you think? Whom are we returning this? Whom are we returning this? Whom are we telling this view? We are returning to whom this view? We are returning this to UI5 framework. When UI5 framework identifies, so your index HTML starts a component now. This component is submitted to the UI5 framework, and now UI5 framework comes and it starts reading your component.js. It first reads the metadata, it calls the init function, it creates the base class object, and then it calls the create content method, and there you returning an app view object to UI5. UI5 will display this app view object for you. That is what create content is doing. Here you are creating initialization view. The first view, the starting launcher view for your app should be now with the component.js. What earlier was done by index.html is now done by component.js, because component.js is the starting point of your application. Yeah, this is the beginning of the earth. This is the beginning of universe for your app. This is everything for a Fiori app. So any productive code, ever you have any thought, always has to start with component.js. Okay, it should start with component.js. Let's run our application then, and now let's come back. I'm going to execute it again. For user, will there be any difference? When you run it for user, there will be a difference. No difference for user. User will still see we are all following standard. We are all following standards, guys. It's just about following standards, nothing else. Just about following standards. Something is wrong, and now I think it's prototype spelling. Yes, that was wrong. Let me come back and refresh the page. And voila! Wow! Awesome! You see, guys, user के लिए zero difference, but for us, we are now a Fiori like app. We are now a Fiori like app, guys. Congratulations. This is your first Fiori like app. This is your actual Fiori like app. Look at the DOM. In the content now, you have a component container. See? SAP UI component container that has a component area. And that is having now your view, app view. Remember? That's a launching view. And this is now instantiated by component.js, not by index.html. Is that clear, everybody? Are all of you clear with this? Yes or no? Are all of you clear with the step by step? Any questions, anybody, on component.js? Please feel free to put it in chat window if you have any questions. Are you clear? We didn't do any rocket science. It was very simple. We have to have our starting point with component.js. There are two types of component, faceless and UI component. When we search for component in the help.sap.com, correct, the faceless component is like a reusable file which is used for communication between two applications, which is very rare case. We don't use it. We don't merge our applications. Sometimes you've been asked to design a very big financial application. In that you have small financial modules, and each module has its sub component.js, and then there is a one major component.js at the app level which is orchestrating other component.js. So in that case we use it, but we don't use. Majority of the time when component.js is created, we use always the base component as UI component. Okay, that is what we do. So endpoint is also component destroy function. Yes, if you want to clean up anything. Yeah, so this is initialization. If you want to clean up when your application is destroyed, you can clean that up here. For example, I had opened a connection to a database. I had opened a connection to REST API. I opened something, I did some initialization, and I now want to clean it up. I want to close the database connection. I want to close that API connection. I can do it in a destroy because this is a destructor like class. This code will be called when component is destroyed. Okay, let's come back and now do next part of it, which is manifest JSON. So you see, guys, we are writing lots of code for creating views, right? We've written a lot of code here. We've also written a lot of code creating our view object. See, we have created lots of code here to create our view object, and then we are adding our view in the master page, adding it in the detail page, and then also navigation between the views. Everything we are manually doing it. And many time I'm sure you might have also had this doubt in your mind, Anubhav, which is the best place for creating view object? Yeah, which is the best place for creating view object? Which is the best place for writing navigation? I am confused whether to create view objects in component.js or in app.controller.js. Yeah. Where to keep? This is a big confusion, guys, right? And so many issues with this, actually. So many issue comes with this. So we actually now we have a big solution for that. We do not need to write code to create view objects anymore. No need to write code to create view objects anymore. Now you say, Anubhav, are you crazy? Yes, I am crazy. There is no need to write any code to create view objects anymore. We just need an application descriptor file where we give configuration to create view objects. That's it. Rest all will be taken care by system automatically. Yes, guys, you're right. That's the magic. Similar to that, there are lots of features which we would need. So typically an application would need lots of other things. So typical Fiori app needs lots of things. Like we need to track the version of Fiori app. How do you track it? We need to have a unique application ID assigned to it so that you can recognize. We need namespace. We need dependency on SAP UI5 library. We need dependency on external CSS files or JavaScript files. We need to manage the allowed themes, allowed devices where your Fiori app will run. Will it be applicable to run this in mobile? Will it be applicable to run it in tablet? All these things we need to manage. We need complete instantiation and navigation concept between views. And that's exactly nothing but your router concept. What else do we need? We need a lot of dependency between other components. We need dependency between SAP UI5 libraries, which you were doing in index.html earlier, right? You will need it here. You are decoupling from index.html. Also, the good news, you don't need to create model object via code now anymore. You can create models just by defining the configuration. Okay, you can do that. Yes, you would need information about the Fiori app which is deployed in ABAP system. All that you would need, all this information, what you would need, every single thing. You need information about OData service, which we will talk to. All that is there as part of application descriptor. This is why it is called application descriptor. Who is the consumer of application descriptor? Component.js is the consumer of it. Name of the application descriptor file is manifest.json. What is the English meaning of manifest? Anybody? Anybody? What is the English meaning of manifest? What is the English meaning of manifest? It is about expressing yourself, right? Expressing yourself. अपने आप को व्यक्त करना, प्रकट करना किसी के सामने. That's what exactly the purpose. It is describing itself about the entire application. It is expressing to the whole world. Who am I? What am I capable of doing? That is what it is doing. That's why called application descriptor or manifest. It is expressing itself, entire application to the entire world. Who am I? What am I capable of doing? That is what manifest is doing. Is that clear, everybody? What is manifest doing? All the information you got to put in manifest.json. There are 3 sections for manifest.json. First is sap.ui section, then is sap.ui5 section, and then is sap.app section. These are all the 3 important sections of any manifest.json file. Inside each of the section, you will have relevant properties kept. For example, in the first section, you're going to put about the title of your application, description of your application. In second section, you will put all the routing information. In third section, you will put supported themes, supported libraries, all that you're going to describe. So let's go ahead and see, create our manifest JSON. The beauty of SAP Web IDE, it gives you a manifest editor. It gives you application descriptor editor in a graphical way so that you can edit. You don't have to write code to adapt JSON. Okay, let us go ahead and link a manifest JSON with component.js and also start writing our first version of manifest JSON. Let me do that. So I can come back to our Web IDE and I'm going to create another file, call it as manifest.json. याद रखना M capital मत कर देना, गड़बड़ हो जाएगा. File name has to be manifest.json. Click on OK. And now let me go ahead and write 3 sections. It's a JSON file. So let me introduce quickly 3 sections. So first of all is the version of manifest JSON itself. SAP is giving guidelines to release manifest JSON, to write a manifest JSON guidelines, and that is what SAP does. And that is what here this version is all about. It's the manifest version itself. And now 3 sections, sap.ui section, sap.ui5 section, and then we have sap.app section. Done. These are all the 3 sections I would need. And you see inside that it is now asking to provide properties. Web IDE, what a lovely tool. Many people coming and asking use Eclipse, use some other tools in the market. There are a lot of tools with Eclipse also they are using. There are tools like, there's another tool called Neptune. Guys, don't use those tools. They will make you lazy. Use Web IDE. This is the only tool which will prevail for future. We don't know the future of Neptune. Maybe that company will shut down one day, and then what will you do? You have no support. Just to keep it lazy, you are going in the wrong direction. What is the guarantee of support? Here there is a guarantee. As long as this technology UI5 is there, Web IDE will also be there with you. Yeah. So it's better to use the certified tool, the tool which SAP recommends. In fact, tomorrow you want to do cloud-based development, you would have to use Web IDE. वहां Neptune नहीं आएगा, वहां और कोई tool नहीं आएगा. You have to use Web IDE. What is wrong in learning Web IDE then? So Eclipse, I'm not against Eclipse. Eclipse is a great tool. Also, especially when it comes to ABAP on HANA, Eclipse is the choice for developers. But when it comes to UI5 Fiori development, WebID is the choice of development. And good news, ABAP was also announced to be part of cloud. SAP ABAP is available soon in the cloud. It was already announced last year, Dallas TechEd. Soon it will come also in the cloud, and WebID will be the tool for developing ABAP reports as well. Yes, guys. So it's a good thing which you're learning right now. If you come to my Launchpad course, there I'm teaching WebID full stack. You can actually edit workflows there. You can design workflows in WebID full stack. Yeah, you can do grunt.js builds. You can create node.js application. You can create Java based applications in WebIDE. You can create HANA calculation views. Those who worked with HANA, you can actually do modeling in WebIDE. You can create HDI, HANA deployment infrastructure. Lots of things. They're all coming in SAP WebIDE. WebIDE full stack is introduced, and now there we have all the features, killer features to integrate. This is the strategy where SAP is going in terms of tooling. There will only and only be one single tool called WebIDE full stack in future. No HANA Studio, no HANA Development Workbench, no other tools, only WebIDE. Because strategy is clear, it's cloud. And now I can switch. So this part is bare minimum. After that, you can switch to descriptor editor below. And now descriptor editor opens up for you. For some of you, it was not opening. Those for whom it's not opening, guys, you have to re-extract your file because there is an issue with your extraction of WebIDE. As I also showed you one video of mine where I told you how to use WebIDE without installation in SAP Cloud Platform. Please watch that video. You will understand without even installation. If you are unsuccessful with multiple tries, you don't waste your time. Go to SAP Cloud Platform and use WebIDE from there for free. If you still don't know that video, let me quickly show you. It's there on my website, on my YouTube channel with the name called WebIDE Full Stack. Just search for that WebIDE full stack, you'll find it. Okay, so you can just go and search for that. Yeah, you'll find here the topmost video. You can see it's coming. Anubhav Oberoi, you can see the name, and then you can go inside this video. You can refer to set up your SAP WebIDE full stack into SAP Cloud Platform for free. It's free, guys. Zero installation to local system, but only problem, you need always the internet connectivity to use it. Without internet connectivity, you can't use our local edition. Local WebIDE you can use without internet connectivity because it's running on a local Orion server, right? Local Orion server we are using. Okay, so now I think time is over. We will edit this manifest, start editing it in tomorrow's class. We will write, also look at the concept of router, how router is simplifying your life for creating view objects. I'll talk about router in detail, and we will remove all this nonsense code where we are creating view object. This is dirty, very dirty. SAP UI5 will create your view objects. You don't have to do that. Okay, this is very dirty. So SAP UI5 framework will do it for us. We will see that. How does it do it? Tomorrow's class, very important. Don't miss tomorrow's class. Okay, very, very important. You will see SAP UI5 framework will create for us all the view objects, and also the navigation between the views will be now done by router. Okay, we'll do it with the router. Hope you understood half part. I'm leaving you in half, actually, very important. So hope you understood this. Please practice till here, and also the exercise which I gave you. Okay, I would need this exercise solution by weekend. If you can give it to me, let's see who does it fast. It won't take much time to write these 5 functions, not at all difficult. You can integrate with the validate button in our application. On click of validate button, you can also test it directly in our application. We have a calendar control. Yesterday's video not uploaded. Let me check it. Just give me a second. I'm so sorry if I forgot that. I will do it right after today's class if you don't have it. List mode. Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. I will do it right after today's class. You can check it right after. Within 5 minutes, you can check that video will come up. Okay. With that, it's a wrap on today's class. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.